Okay, it's Don Paul, set loose, furthering the decline of Western civilization with my brand new YouTube channel, which will frequently have, yes, weather stuff in it. My first little video after my introductory video, which is now on the channel called Don Paul Blathers. And if you followed my work since 1984, you know that's the appropriate title. This is a quick little story about a job I had way back when. After I got out of college, I abandoned all that academic stuff, forgot a lot of meteorology, and worked for about 2.5 years for what was the greatest adult radio station in the country, in my opinion, and that of many others, WNEW in New York. That's where Frank Sinatra started as a very young guy, very skinny guy. And I had many low-level functionary jobs at the station, but one of my favorites was working in this booth hanging from the upper deck of old Yankee Stadium for New York Giants home games. For the first 2 years, well, the 2 years I was there, I worked only home games because it didn't cost them anything. And that face there is a man who even my dear beloved friend Uncle Van Miller regarded as the greatest radio play-by-play announcer he had ever heard, Marty Glickman. In fact, HBO did a whole documentary about him a few decades ago. Marty was in the 1936 Olympics behind Jesse Owens when the U.S. Olympic Committee knuckled under to Adolf Hitler and didn't allow Marty and another super track star to run because they were Jewish. So they were there, they had qualified, and were shut out of the Munich Olympics in 1936. And Marty never really got over that, of course, but he was just a wonderful guy, and he got me into the booth. There was no pay on those Sundays, but what a thrill. Our color analyst was New York Giants Hall of Fame middle linebacker, the great Sam Huff. You have to be older to know that name. He's in the Hall of Fame, one of the few linebackers who had success now and then stopping Jim Brown. Well, there I was up in that booth, and for the 2 years I worked there, you can see there's no glass, and if you had a cold game and you're hanging from the upper deck of old metal Yankee Stadium, not a warm place to be. Now, in the whole 2 years I was there, Sam Huff, who was a very funny man, he actually ran for the House in West Virginia. That's where he's from. He didn't get elected, though. Sam never learned my name. He called me Pardner. Well, the last game in December of my second year, the very last game was the coldest game in the 2 years. And I sat just to the left of Marty. I'm not in this picture. Huddled next to a butane heater. And I had polyester bell-bottom pants on. I remember this very clearly. Marty, I know this isn't an exciting video, it's just a story. Marty that day was literally sick to his stomach. He had a terrible stomach virus, and he sounded like death cooled over before the microphone opened. And our sports director, Chip Cipolla, urged him to go home. And Marty had never missed a game during the time the WNEW carried the New York Giants for many, many years. And he said, "No, I'll get through." And the microphone opened, and what you heard was, and if you have ever heard Marty Glickman, I do a pretty good impression. "It's New York Giants football." During the course of the game, you had no idea he was ill. At halftime, we would usually get great lunch in the press room, but of course Marty was in no state of mind to have food, so he retired to the facilities, came back, did a great second half. But it was really cold, and the Giants really stunk. They were terrible. They had traded away Fran Tarkenton, the great quarterback, for nothing, had a terrible quarterback, hopeless team, and near the end of the game, it just got windier and windier, and the game ended. And in fact, Sam Huff, before the game ended, when the Giants were down, I don't know, 42-7, said, "Well, it's about time to break out the skis since there's no playoff coming here." And then he said to Marty, I don't know if you know this, Marty, but when I ski, I kind of get down and I leave 4 tracks in the snow. Think about that. Little off color for play-by-play, but Marty and the rest of us burst out laughing. And then the game ended. And to get into this box, which was right next to the opposing team's coaches there in the third deck, who could occasionally be heard screaming around the corner, a little of their audio would get into our audio. You had to climb a steel ladder to get in and out. And it was kind of a hopeless situation. And I was climbing up the steel ladder ahead of Sam Huff, which was the only thing during my time at WNEW that impressed my dad, my late dad, that I was getting to work with Marty Glickman and Sam Huff. And as I climbed up the stairs, Sam called up to me and said, "Hey, partner." "Yes, Sam." "Your pants melted." And I looked down, and my polyester bell-bottoms, the right leg, had melted into what looked like slag from a coal mine. And that was my last moment with New York Giants football. Of course, I still carry some love for the Giants. I grew up with them. I lived right across the river from Yankee Stadium, so you can't blame me for that. So guess what happened in the 1990 Super Bowl when the Bills were playing? That was a win-win for me. I think, well, if the Bills win, it's great for Buffalo. And it started snowing here in Buffalo late in the game, and you all know what happened. Yeah, the wide whatever. I waited till I was about 5 blocks away from the house where there was a party for the Super Bowl game before I raised my fist. See, it's a good thing I'm not in TV with focus groups, because this would alienate people. And I raised my fist and said, "Yes!" There's still a little, I've been living here longer than where I grew up in New Jersey, right immediately across the river from New York. But there's still a little bit of Jersey left in me. So that's just a little story, and who knows what I'll talk about next. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if not, don't tell your friends.